in the order that people said their name, pretty much. So first up is Juan Blumenberg. Head over to Joe. Might take a little while. Christy Jarvis.
Is there anybody in the stream? Can you tell me if the audio is working? Awesome. Thanks, Chris. We are just doing the raffle right now. So once the raffle's done, we will start the Q&A process. So if anybody wants to do questions, you can send stuff here.
I think there's just one iron, so it's everything on that right.
Yes. Yes, there's just the one iron, just the one brush setup. Yes, I'm not giving away that much stuff. Yes. This is all just.
I figured he grabbed it, and I was like,
yeah.
I don't know.
Tom Harris.
All right, we got another couple minutes on the raffle, and then we'll start that Q&A. Which gives me some time to think about what my favorite World Cup story or memory is.
How many more do we have, guys? How many more people?
Oh.
Yeah, actually, that would be a bad thing.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll do here 4. 4.
Troy Bauer.
And if there's anybody else here in the chat, I can't tell who's in here. But if you have any questions, you can feel free to ask them now, and then I'll make sure that they get answered pretty close to the front end of the conversation.
How do you mount this to your table?
I have, where are they? They're called
Those.
technically called Brad nuts, but they're slotted T-nuts.
Yeah.
And they fit into.
This doesn't. This comes with the whole kit, right?
This basically this kit comes with this piece here, these two, and this.
Yeah.
This is I built this myself. So.
But if the kit comes with this.
Yep.
How does this mount to this without your custom setup?
Well, it just this comes like this.
Oh, I got it. Okay.
And it gets mounted. But on the underside, there's this. Or you can just go buy, this is like $25. So like this, it gets mounted and you see like this spot here.
Okay.
So this goes into that hole and then it clamps down to the underside of the bench. So they do sell these. But because I have this bracket here, it doesn't work. And I like this being a little more, yeah.
And so you have a T thing
Yep.
inside here.
Yep.
Okay, got it.
So all I had to do for myself is I just drilled through my bench here and here, and then I can now suck this in, and it's just very stable. So,
Okay.
all right.
Person will be Zach McCoy.
Yay. All right. Cool. All right. So I have started up Q&A live stream. So again, if people want to listen back afterwards, you can. I will start off with one of the questions that I have in the live stream there. This one was asked by my brother, Chris. What is your favorite World Cup story or memory? So I've been able to go on the World Cup a few different times between U.S. ski team, Rec Ski Wax, Team Australia. And it's really difficult to figure out like a one solid memory. I think I have two that kind of stand out to me. The first one has to be my first World Cups that I went to. So when I did a master's degree in Finland. I was there for 2 years for a master's degree, and Rex asked me to help out with a racing service at the first World Cups in Ruka. So the World Cup season always starts in Ruka, Finland, or at least it has for as long as I remember. And so those first races that I was at in 2014, 2015, what I'm doing as a service tech for Rex is I'm going there and I'm testing out ski waxes that Rex has, trying to figure out what the best wax is, and then I go recommend that to the teams. So my very first day that I'm out there waxing, out there testing, I'm out there skiing at the exact same time. I have a bib on that allows me to get on course. I'm skiing out there the exact same time as all the World Cup women. There's Therese Johaug, Marit Bjørgen, and I'm just like, just chasing after them. And I mean, after 20 minutes, I was like, holy cow, I'm tired. And then 2 hours later, I go do the same thing, and oh shit, there's Petter Northug, there's Martin Sundby, and I'm chasing after them, and I'm like skiing like really hard. And I'm like, oh man, I'm glad I was in shape back then because I definitely could not do that now. Granted, now I've got a little bit less of the star luster, whatever. They're normal people. But with my first World Cup, they were all like extra special. These are my idols. And then I guess my other more recent memory is from the Minneapolis World Cup. So at the Minneapolis World Cup, I was one of the wax techs for the U.S. ski team. So I was invited to help out some of the A-team members that just because there's so many starters for the U.S. ski team, they needed extra service guys that they don't normally have. And so on the sprint day, when we're out testing, what normally happens is there are bibs that get you access to the course. Depending on course conditions, depending on course size, some teams get more bibs, some teams get less bibs. Usually on a sprint day, there's just not as many bibs to go around, and especially with that, with there being that many athletes and coaches, there was not enough bibs for the amount of coaches. And so I was testing for Xander McMullen and Sydney Palmer-Ledger. Sydney didn't have a sprint start, I believe, but Zandon did. And so I was testing all morning on that little test track that kind of goes out in the golf course towards was it the Meadows, or I don't remember I don't ski at Theodore Wirth all that frequently. But I was just on the test course, which is away from the general public, which is away from a lot of people. And then ideally what happens when I'm with an athlete is I go out and I test with the athlete. I narrow down their skis out in the test area down to, like, let's say 2 pair of skis. And then I'd go out with the athlete on course and help them test on course and like, hey, let's figure out if it's this ski or that ski. And I got to the area where we could get out on course and I didn't have a bib. So I just handed the skis off to Zane and I'm saying, hey, yep. Go take a spin. This is what I was kind of thinking. Here are your 2 best skis. Let me know. He comes back after a lap, and another coach came back and handed me a bib and says, you need to go out and do this. I'm like, okay. So I go out on course with Zandon, and I mean, I'm guessing a lot of you guys were there because there was a lot of people there. It was wild. Being on the inside, being on course, skiing the entire time was incredible. An experience I'm never going to forget, especially since like I'm out there skiing, I think I might have had US Ski Team tights on, but like they're older tights. And then just like a nondescript base layer and I'm not an athlete. And I'm skiing next to Xander McMullen, who's an athlete that's racing that day. I was more popular than he was. The amount of cheers that I got, Jeremy, go Jeremy. I was like, oh, people, this is kind of cool. So, in Zandon, like I know him, I waxed for him a little bit. He's like, people know you here. I'm like, yeah, well, this is where I'm from. So, yeah, that was pretty cool, pretty fun. Yeah. So this question and answer, it can literally be about anything. So my brother started off good with just kind of World Cup memories. I can do more experience stuff. I can showcase more stuff. If nobody asks questions, I can start rattling off more information off my head. So is there any questions that anybody had off the bat?
So you get your skis hot box.
Yes.
So then what's the difference between that and then hot boxing your skis? Does that last a certain period of time?
Yeah, so the question is you get your skis hot box and then you get them hot wax. What's the difference between hot boxing and hot waxing? And probably when should you hot box? When should you hot wax? So hot boxing, what that is you're putting on a very soft wax under your skis. Generally a wax that's going to melt 80 degrees Celsius or less. So it's a super soft wax. You're putting that on the ski bases. Ski bases go inside of a box. That box gets heated up to roughly 50, 55 degrees Celsius. And it sits in that box for an extended period of time. And the idea is that the soft wax gets soaked into the ski base. It is a nice thing to have when you have a freshly ground pair of skis or a brand new pair of skis that have never been waxed before. Once you have wax into the ski bases, a hot box really means nothing. The amount of times I get people at the end of the season, oh, I want to get a hot box before the new season starts. Like, well, did you get your skis ground? No. I'm like, well, then just get your hot wax. Like, you already have wax in your ski bases. That the point of a hot box is just to get more wax into your ski bases. So you can just do that really easily with that hot box. That's why we recommend it when we get a stone grind. We always recommend having that hot box and base harden afterwards. The base harden, what that does is it helps to bridge the gap from that soft, crappy hot box wax to a more standard wax you use melting on. So.
And then that will last the same amount of time as the wax you do at home.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the hot box, I would never do a hot box twice on a pair of skis unless you got a stone grind and then yes, you do another hot box. So.
After a hot box, do you recommend starting out with a fairly soft, hot iron-on wax and work?
I mean, after a hot box, I would go to a hardening product. We have that's why when we do a hot box, we also do a base harden immediately after. We have a specialized product that helps to bridge that gap really safely for the skis. So it's a wax that we can iron in at a lower iron temperature, but it hardens up pretty hard. It doesn't glide very well, but it works well to bridge that process. But if you do it at home, yeah, basically you're going from like a red, then you go to a violet, then you go to a blue, then you go to a green. You're kind of just generally slowly moving that wax from a warm soft to a colder wax. But you can do that really easily. I mean, again, if you get a grind from us, it usually always includes a hot box and base harden. So I know there's a question over here. Yes? Yep. Yep. So if you get a grind from us, you do that hot box base harden. Whether you do that now or if you did that last spring and you just had that hardener sitting on there, scrape brush, put on a coat or two of your wax of the day. So wax of the day for me, always blue. So that will get your skis gliding pretty well, and then you can do your liquid waxes and just continue on there from there. So the base hardener that we use, we mix Rex Blue in with this specialized product from Sweden. Again, it kind of sucks, but it does a good job of bridging the gap between that hot box wax to the just straight blue. So, yes. So how do you know when to stone grind your skis is the question. A lot of times, the best way, bring it into any of us at the shop and we'll be be able to give you base health analysis. But really what it comes down to is if you're looking at your ski bases and you see a uniform color on your ski bases, generally it's going to be healthy base material. When you see different shades of base materials, so it'd be dull sections and shiny sections and maybe a little bit of white here and there, assuming that is not wax, that you just didn't do a good job of scraping like I did here, that's a sign of unhealthy base material. When you have unhealthy base material, it's not going to soak up wax as well. It's not going to glide as well. That's when we would recommend a stone grind. Or if you just scratch the crap out of your skis, like what a lot of people did at the Berkey last year. I had a lot of skis come in after the Berkey last season. I can mitigate some of those issues. So
how many stone grinds can your ski take?
it all depends. So the question is, how many stone grinds can a pair of skis take? Like I told you, my favorite answer, it all depends. And this one, there's two different things that it depends on. One is the base health, how much base I need to take off in order to get to healthy base material. It all depends on how much damage is done to that ski. If there's some deeper scratches, I might need to take off more base material. If there's burn damage and I have to get rid of that, I have to maybe take off more base material. But if I'm there to just to remove a grind and just change the pattern on the ski, I can probably do that 15 to 20 times on a pair of skis. But if I'm having to fix an issue, it might be 3 or 4 times, maybe 5. And then sometimes there's base defects, like literally just an issue with production where I might only be able to grind a pair of skis once. And it's a brand new pair of skis. And I've seen that from several times where I've sold skis. I'm like, well, yeah, I can grind this once and that's it. But generally I give customers a warning that like, hey, like this is your last grind. Like either don't screw up your skis or the bases are in okay shape. Let's save this grind for next year or something like that. So, yeah. Any other questions?
Turnaround time, assuming it's not like a race week.
Yeah, so turnaround time on grinds. We generally remain pretty consistent throughout the winter where we run a grind batch every week. So we are running a grind batch every Monday or Tuesday. And generally skis we try to have finished before the end of the weekend. Again, it all depends on what weeks they are. Like this week we'll be done, but next week with it being Christmas on Wednesday or Thursday, I don't know. We'll be doing a grind batch on Monday, and we will try to get skis done before the holidays because I don't want to do the skis after the holidays. So I might just have some longer hours beforehand. The big ones that make things change, Berkey week. We don't grind skis Berkey week. We'll grind skis that week prior to Berkey week. And then our grind schedule does change in the summer because people don't need their skis on a weekly basis. But generally, yeah, we try to keep skis going back to customers as quickly as you can. If you come in for a hot wax, I can do all the stuff here at the shop. If we're not busy, we generally do that day of. So.
About how much does it cost to get a grind hot box?
Grind, hot box, and base harden, I believe, is $130. So it's all included in that package. So. Any other questions?
Question about the Roto wool.
Yes.
It seems to me like after you use that a lot of different times with a few different liquid waxes, it's just gonna have a kind of just a mixture of different waxes embedded in it.
Yep.
You have to clean it all the time.
Yes, you should be cleaning it. I really like this question because I can open this up a little bit further. So Roto wools. When you are using liquid with Roto wools, you're applying the Roto wool to the ski. This Roto wool is going to be picking up that wax that's on the ski base. You are also going to be applying the wax that is currently on this wool back to the ski base as well on the next pair of skis that you're waxing. So there can be some cross-contamination between this wool and whatever ski you're using. So because of that, I generally recommend that you have specific wools for specific temperature waxes. So you should have three wools, one for cold waxes, one for medium waxes, one for warm waxes. The reason is that if you're using a cold wool or a wool that has cold waxes on there, and you're trying to wool that into a warm wax, well, you're now getting some cold wax on your warm wax job. And so it is a good idea to have some specific wools. And then in addition to that, cleaning these wools is really important. So over time, they will, again, get gunky. When that happens, you just go to whatever Target, buy Wool Light laundry detergent. So it's just a wool laundry detergent, and just in a warm basin with water, clean it, dry it, and then they'll be good to go again. So you can reuse these. You can, they do last a long time. But yes, just a wool cleaner. Yep. Just a basin with the warm water, like soak it in with the Wool Light or the detergent. Work it in there a little bit, and then rinse it off and dry it, and then it's good as go. So, so we got another question that came in. When do you use wooled on blocks versus liquids? So I do have some blocks here. So I got a wool block. So I primarily during the more entry level-ish clinic, I generally recommend liquids. This is a really easy thing to do. But as you go into more advanced stuff, Roto wool blocks are absolutely amazing to use. These are some of the fastest waxes right now on the World Cup circuit are going to be Roto wool blocks. And so what a Roto wool block is we'll see, it's a little hunk of wax that you can apply to the wool and apply the wool to the ski, and that will apply the wax that is on the wool to the ski, and it'll keep it going. When you would use these wool on blocks versus a liquid, generally these wool on blocks will work in slightly colder and slightly drier conditions. So depending on the humidity levels, you'll want to use the wool on blocks. At the World Cup level, they have machines called it's a doser, so it measures the humidity of the snow. You can really use that and be like, okay, if the snow humidity is less than 20%, liquids generally just won't run. That's where we would work with blocks. But if that snow humidity is above 30%, you're for sure going to be using a liquid. So you can get an idea of when you're going to use that. If you have the ability to measure snow humidity, air humidity and temperature kind of does go hand in hand with the snow humidity, but there are some weird exceptions here and there. I can show really quickly how to use these Roto wool blocks. So get a little bit of application here in this clinic. So again, I'm going to attach my Roto wool to that faster drill. And so
So with this, you would definitely want to have separate wools for each.
Again, you can use, like, this is a medium temperature Roto wool block. I would be fine using this together on the same wax I'm using this medium temperature liquid. So you can use the liquids and the blocks interchangeably. So, but again, another reason why you want to have specific wools, because I don't want to apply this block to my warm wool or my cold wool. I'd apply it to the medium one. So with this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to slow my drill down to the slowest setting I have. So it's now going to be quite a bit slower. And I'm going to brace the drill against my body and apply the wool or the wax to the wool. And you'll see my wool now has this like gray coating on there. That's the wax that went from here to the wool. And then I'm going to apply, again, at this slower speed, starting at the tail of the ski. The reason why I started at the tail of the ski, this is where the most pressure happens on a ski base. When you're standing on a ski, there's about 70% pressure on the back of the ski, 30% pressure on the front. It means that you're going to have more of an impact on glide from the back. So if I'm applying the wax, I want to make sure the most amount of it gets applied to the back of the ski. So again, at this slower speed. Huh? Because it's going to help just apply the wax to the ski rather than just shooting it off right away. So I'm just trying right now just apply it to the ski rather than work it in. And my battery is somewhat dying. And you'll see, I mean, this is where people get like, it's voodoo, like I'm not seeing anything. You'll see, like, I have wax on the ski base. You can see that dust that's kind of on the ski base there. So there's that dust there you see from the ski base. Now that I have it applied to that ski base, I'm then going to speed this back up to the max setting to that 4,000 RPM. And again, starting from the tail of the ski, working back to the front of the ski, because as this is spinning, it's going to be shooting wax out that way. I want to shoot it into the ski base where I can still work it back in. Versus if I start here, I'm just going to be pushing it all and just basically sweeping it off the end of the ski. So. And then I'm just going to work it in. So that's now worked in. And then again, I'll take that nylon brush to finish off with. And there, that's a Roto block. So these are incredibly important at the racing level. It's also just a nice, easy way to get some extra wax into your ski bases. It's easier and quicker than hot waxing. But this is what is called a cold application. So you're applying this without heat. Similar to a liquid wax, it's a cold application. You're applying it without heat. So that's primarily what you're seeing in the wax world today. There's hot applications and cold applications. Hot applications are going to be your melt-on waxes, like blocks, and then also powders. And your cold applications are going to be the blocks and the liquids. So. It's roughly the same as what a liquid would last. So the question is will a block last longer than a liquid? They roughly will last about the same. The thing that you can do with these blocks and with the liquids is you can layer them. I just put one layer on that really quickly. You can put 2 or 3 layers pretty easily, and that will help out with that durability standpoint. And you're basically just getting these microfilm layers of wax on the ski base. So. It depends. It depends. So the question is that the blocker liquids are either or. It depends. I wish I had a better answer for people. It's like specifically these are the times you use blocks, and specifically these are the times you use liquids. The rule of thumb is that generally lower humidity is blocks, higher humidity is liquids. It can alternate. You can also use them both together. I had one of my most dominant days as a wax tech recently was last junior nationals last year, where we were using a liquid that we put down on the ski base, and then we put the Roto before brushing or doing anything to that liquid. We put a Roto block on top of that, and then work the liquid and the block in together. And the U20 girls for the Midwest region crushed it. Swept the podium. I think we went 1, 2, 3, 4. And there was a Great Lakes girl that was 5. Or there's another Midwest attachment that was 5th. So we did extremely well. And most of that was on the girls that were racing. But I'll take some of the credit with the wax. So.
How'd you come up with that, though?
Testing. So how to come up with that? It's testing where it's like, okay, like these liquids are good. This block is good. Let's see what it's like to mix them together. And that was better. It's just, yes, it's voodoo. But it's When that's the one thing that separates what happens for testing waxes from what you guys have access to versus what I have access to versus what the US ski team has access to is not equipment, it's not product, it's man hours, it's manpower. As individuals, you can only test so many things. You have one or two pair of skis. I have multiple pair of skis, and I'll have Ian and Matt Clark and Jack, and we can have like 4 people out testing. And the US ski team, they're going to have 6 to 8 people out testing. And the Norwegians, they might have 15 to 20 people out testing. So that's the primary piece that that people that make good skis is just manpower. So, Ian.
So if you were recommending liquids or blocks to someone who's newer to waxing, which would you recommend they start with? If they're just kind of getting into waxing, or which one do you recommend?
Yeah, if you're just getting into waxing for the very first time, liquid waxes. If you are starting to get into that next little step, melt on blocks and liquid waxes. And if you're really trying to get after it, that's where the Roto everything comes into play. So the Roto, basically once you invest into Roto tools, that's when you have the ability to use this. You can't use these, well, you can use these without Roto tools. Again, you can always do everything different ways. But the best way to use these is with Roto tools. So I generally don't think that these are going to work very well without Roto tools. You can use it as a touring person that you can rub it on your ski and then take a hand cork and cork it on and then brush it off. That does work. But a liquid is going to be better than doing this by hand. This will be much, much better when you can start to use those Roto tools. The most versatile tool that we have access to is that Roto wool. Roto wools are the most beneficial and universal tools. You're going to use this at every step of the process in waxing. So I didn't show it because, again, we were in this kind of more intermediate or beginner clinic. But I did skip out on that step where you are going to, you clean your skis. That's the only time you don't use the Roto wool is during the cleaning process. But you will melt the iron or melt the wax onto the ski, scrape it, but prior to brushing, Roto wool. If you Roto wool, it will, like I said with the liquids, it'll help manage that film thickness. Even after you scrape, there's still going to be ridges in that wax that you can't see. It's on a micron level. This is going to help, again, manage that film thickness, make it more consistent, more even, and then you brush it. It's going to do a much better job in terms of performance. It almost always helps, and it never hurts. So it's a step in the process that, like, I sometimes get lazy and I don't do myself for training, but I'll always do it for racing, where I will do the wool first, and then I will brush, and then I will go on to those next steps. And then you're also using that Roto wool for liquids. You're using it for Roto blocks. You're using it for every single step of the process, and it makes a big difference in each step of the process. I don't like to push like, oh, you need 5, 6, 7 Roto wools. It does help to have a specific Roto wool for that paraffin product because it does get a little bit gunkier than using your liquids or your Roto blocks. But if you only have one Roto wool, it's better than no Roto wools. So I don't want to scare people away from using this product if you think, oh, I can only use it if I have like 5 of them. Well, I'm not requiring anybody to buy 5. But if you want to buy 5, I have them for sale. So.
Liquid waxes and Roto wools, are there some brands that it's more crucial to use the Roto wool to get the extra durability versus other brands?
When liquid waxes first came out, it seemed to be hit or miss on companies whether Roto wools helped out or if they didn't. There are some waxes that got really gummy if you worked it in and you didn't want to do that with. I think that companies have now started to realize the benefit of Roto-Wools, and they started to develop their products to be used with Roto-Wools. I can't really think of a single liquid wax right now that you wouldn't want to use a Roto-Wool with. So it's there's not any exceptions at the moment.
So what kind of extra durability would one get from using Roto-Wool versus just applying the liquid wax and let it sit overnight?
It's not as much about durability as it is about performance. You might gain a little bit of durability, but you're gaining a lot of performance. And that, again, comes from just managing that film thickness, making it more even across the ski base prior to the brushing of the ski. I don't think that it's going to help or really affect durability that much. It might, but yeah.
Are today's waxes better than the fluorocarbon 8, 6, 7, 5 years ago?
It is a little bit of a loaded question. So the question is that are today's waxes better than the fluorocarbon waxes? The reason why I say this is a loaded question is because I think it does depend. When you're in the single digits, the cold temperatures, fluoros kind of sucked. So there's a lot of times, even in the fluoro days, I was waxing with non-fluoro waxes, and we were winning races on non-fluoro waxes. That's when it's down in the single digits. When it comes to your melt-on paraffins, your LFs, your HFs, the waxes that are around now are as good, if not better, than those waxes. So I am not comparing against fluoros really ever anymore because I don't really care. I'm not using fluoros. I don't need to use fluoros. But when we were developing waxes, so when I was working with Rex, we were developing the NF series of waxes. So NF21 is kind of our bread and butter melt-on wax product. And we were developing that. We were testing it up against HF21, so the high fluoro version from Rex. And in the testing that we had, it beat the NF21 beat out HF21 5 out of 6 tests. So it was really quite good. And then you threw a pure fluoro powder on top of that HF21, and nothing came close. So nothing has come close to beating out a pure fluoro product. Maybe it will at some point, but honestly, it doesn't matter because we're not racing against pure fluoro products anymore. So, yeah, looks like I have another question in here. Oh boy. Yes, I got a good question here in the chat. So they ask, can you give a brief description of how you test and compare waxing of skis? I have a really good blog post of this on our website, talking about testing protocols, testing procedures. Just kind of as a brief overview, there's a few different ways to test out skis and test out waxes. For an individual like yourself, you might have 2 pair of skis. They're probably not matched. Really what you can do with 2 pair of skis, you can test 3 waxes. And what happens is that you put 1 wax on one ski, 1 wax on the other ski, you go out, you ski, and you're like, okay, this one feels a little bit better. Then you come back, and then you can put that winning wax on your other pair of skis on one ski, and then you can pick out another wax and put it on the other ski. And you go out and you're like, okay, now this is the winning wax. So you can test three waxes on 2 pair of skis. You can test 4 waxes on 3 pair of skis. You can test 5 waxes on 4 pair of skis. Basically, it's just an elimination process. If you have access to matched pairs of skis, so matched fleet, that's what we have at Pioneer Midwest. I think we now have a 12-pair fleet of skis. So I have 12 pair of skis that are pretty much identical, and they're going to be ground the same. I could put 24 different waxes on those skis and compare ski 1A to 1B to 2A to 2B down the line, and basically come out with a feeling of, okay, this one feels the fastest. That's what I did last week. I was in Italy last week for a grind camp with the US ski team. I was testing grinds by feeling because we didn't have access to any other way of testing just because of course conditions. But with a matched pair of skis, what you can do is instead of putting 1 wax on one ski and 1 wax on another ski, You can put one wax on one pair of skis, another wax on another pair of skis, and you can basically have each pair be in different waxes, and then you can do glide outs. So you can glide down a hill, comparing against somebody else or comparing against yourself and timing it, and you can figure out the difference and figure out quantitatively what is actually faster. That is kind of the gold standard on the World Cup, is going to be doing paired glide outs. But usually what ends up happening, if I have 8 pair of skis out there, I will glide out and I will turn that 8 pair of skis down to 4, down to 2. And once I get down to that 2, I will still try to figure out, okay, which one glides better. But I'll go out on course and I'll see which one also feels good on an uphill. Because there's a big difference between breakaway speed and also top end speed. And during a glide out, you're only measuring top end speed. But breakaway speed does matter when you're climbing and that slipperiness underneath the foot. So if something's close, that's usually the tiebreaker is feeling. So, but again, I do have a really good blog post online that kind of goes really in depth and in detail on how to test skis, depending on what your certain circumstance is, whether you have 1 pair of skis or 8 pair of skis. So, and you can do that with skis, you can do that with wax, you can do that with grinds, pretty much everything. So. Nope. So the question is, any difference between powders and hot wax when you're prepping your ski? I treat powders and melt-on wax exactly the same, because in theory, they are exactly the same. They're both melt-on paraffins. The reason why a powder isn't a powder form can be either because it is really difficult to apply in a melt-on form, it's really hard, or more frequently now, the raw materials, the wax that's actually in that powder is not uniform when it gets put into a block. So if I were to take a powder of wax, melt it, put it into a mold, and let that mold cool, by the time it cools, some of those raw materials will sink to the bottom of the mold, and that will have some of the raw materials at the bottom here, and then like no raw materials at the top, and it's not uniform at all. But if you keep it in a powder form, it stays uniform because it just shakes around and it works. So that's like the NFX line. They can't be put into a melt-on block form because it will the raw materials just sink to the bottom. So, yes. That is so. Yeah. So somebody suggested basically what is called a cold application of a block. Oh yeah. No, so with these little blocks, the Roto wool blocks, sometimes people will say crayon this onto the ski and then either cork it or wool it. You don't want to crayon this directly onto the ski. You want to put this onto the wool because it's going to put a more uniform layer of wax onto the ski base. If you crayon this onto the ski base, you're going to have ridges, you're going to have depressions. There's going to be thick spots and thin spots of this. So like I can really show you really quickly. I crayon this on here, and we'll see that on there. I don't know how many people are looking. There's a few. But you'll see in here, like, it's not a uniform layer of wax. There's spots where there's thicker, thinner, and honestly, this is way too thick. Like this is just going to be a kind of pain in the butt to get off. Rather than putting it onto that wool is much, much better. So, Yep. Yep. So the question is, can you layer liquids? Can you layer blocks? Yes, you can do that. I mean, you're managing film thickness. So by putting this on with a wool, you put on a thin layer of one wax, and you're covering it with a thin layer of another wax. You can definitely do that, where you put on a warmer wax underneath and a colder wax on top. Colder wax wears off, and you have a warmer wax underneath. That does work. and can be useful. I generally don't recommend it too frequently because more often than not, people are not expanding across like this massive temperature range because you're only out there for a couple hours at a time, maybe. Even in the Berkey, when you're out there for 3 hours, really there's not that much that is changing. When you start at 10 o'clock and you're finishing at 1 o'clock, it's when you start at 8 o'clock and you finish at 4 o'clock, that's where you have some big changes. So. Good question. So the question was, what are some common mistakes that you may see from beginner or even into the advanced level? Really, the biggest stuff comes from just not even necessarily mistakes. I mean, there's really not a lot of mistakes you can make in waxing. The mistakes that you can make in waxing is like, oh crap, I dragged this sharp edge across the ski base. That's a mistake. You don't want to do that. But like what I'll see is that it's just like learning how to make sure it's okay, did I scrape enough? Did I brush enough? That's where I'll see the most improvements can be made. It's not a mistake because like you didn't screw up. You're just not experienced enough to know exactly how to do it correctly yet. Scraping and brushing is where I see the most improvements can be made for beginner skiers, beginner waxers. When I, excuse me, it's funny when we get skis that come in for our Berkey service, we get 450 pair of skis coming in, and most people that are bringing their skis say, okay, this is the most important race for me. I want to make sure that I get my skis waxed well. I get people that are very good at waxing their skis, and they still give me their skis because they just don't want to deal with it or worry about it. And I get people that this is the only time that they wax their skis out the year. And then I get a lot of people that wax their skis on their own, and they give them to me to wax because they just don't trust themselves for that race. And it's interesting to see some of these skis that come in. I'm looking at them like, if I just take this ski right now, going back, scrape it and brush it, because there's still wax covering the ski. Like I could tell that they've been skiing on the ski and there's wax that had not been scraped and brushed. And I just hand it to the customer and I don't do anything else. I don't apply any wax. They're going to be so happy with their skis compared to what they're used to. It's just that scraping and brushing process is like, it is so incredibly important. And when we see skis come in, they're just like halfway scraped and brushed. I'm like, well, this customer is going to have an awesome day because they're going to have faster skis than they've had all season long because it'll be the first time they've had skis that have been properly scraped and brushed. So it's, again, scraping and brushing means everything. Looks like we got another question in here. Okay, so the question is, and I'm going to have to translate this a little bit. What is your current opinion on texturing ski wax for recreational skiers? How important is texturing for world-class ski waxing? I'm imagining that texturing is talking about structure. Russell, if that is indeed what you're asking, I will expound upon structure. I've not really heard much of texturing ski wax, but structure. What structure is? So there's two different types of structure. There is ski grind. So I was in Italy last week testing out grinds for the U.S. ski team. And what that is that we're basically putting a different pattern on the surface of the ski base. These patterns that you'll see on the surface of the ski base, this makes a huge impact on performance of the skis. It'll make them glide or it'll make them stop gliding, depending on the pattern you put in the ski base. That makes a much, much bigger difference than any wax that you put on there. Structure on a ski base, on a grind on a ski base, is the second most important thing when it comes to a ski. The most important thing when it comes to a ski is just flex. Just the overall flex of the ski, that is what matters the most. The next most important thing is grind, that structure that you get put into the ski. Third most important thing is the hand structure. So that's, there's tools that you can put structure into the ski base that help to adapt conditions. And then finally, you get to ski wax. That's the least important part of this process is ski wax. still makes a big difference. But the grind and the structure is probably the most technical part of the process. I was going to have Jack, we were talking about this during a ski, about how many possible combinations of ski grinds there are based on the variables that I could put into my grinder. So just to give you guys an idea of the amount of different types of grinds I can make is the different variables that come into a ski grind are grind depth. So that grind depth can be anywhere from the shallowest grind depth I can make is 0.005 millimeters all the way up to 0.05 millimeters, probably where I'd max out at. I can make them deeper, but they just won't work. So I can make increments of 0.001 millimeters. So I can do 0.005, 0.006, 0.007, all the way up to 0.05 millimeters. Then I can choose how fast the diamond passes on the stone from left to right. I can choose anywhere between 2 millimeters per second up to like, maybe it's like 10 millimeters per second. And I can adjust that by 0.1 millimeters. So it's 2.01, 2.02. So I can adjust that by 0.01 millimeters. So from 2 to 10, I can decide to do that cut going from the left ski side of the ski to the right side of the ski, from the right side of the ski to the left side of the ski. Or I can do a combination of those two, where I can do a left to the right and a right to the left. And then I can layer those up to like 3 or 4 layers. So already there, we probably are in the quadrillions of combinations. And that doesn't include the 4 or 5 different stones I could put on the ski, or the 7 or 8 different diamonds I can use on the ski, or the varying amounts of pressure I can use on the ski, or the speed that the ski passes through the stone, or the speed that the stone is spinning. So there's probably a bigger number than I can think of combinations of structure. And how those all work, I'm learning. I learned a lot last week when I was in Italy on how to create more structures and better structures. And yeah, so, and then that is just the stone grinder. Then there's the hand tools. There are numerous amount of hand tools. So we just picked up a new brand of structure tools called Speedy Ski Rollers. They have, I believe it's 30 different patterns that you can use to create a different pattern on the ski base. Those patterns can be used all individually, or you can mix them. In addition to those patterns, they have 3 different boxes that have different gearing ratios for those patterns. So technically, I don't have 30 patterns because I have the 3 boxes. I now have 90 patterns because the different gearing ratios will give you different structures. Again, combining those forwards, backwards, I mean, there's, again, probably thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of combinations of hand structure I can suggest. It gets rather daunting for most people, even myself. And I generally just boil down to, okay, these are simple. Simple is better. That's why, again, during my previous clinics, when I was talking about waxing skis, blue wax, you get your 4 different liquids. That's simple, and it's going to work in 95% of the conditions. If I apply that wax, this blue wax with one of those liquids, if I apply it correctly versus testing and testing and testing and find the exact perfect wax and applying it poorly, I'm going to beat you with my very simple wax job that I applied correctly. Application means everything. So, do we have any other questions here?
You always apply structure.
Yes and no. So again, it depends. It depends on if you have the right tools. The question is, do you always apply structure? If you have the right tool, structure works almost all the time. But most people don't have 30 different bits and 3 different boxes from like 4 or 5 different companies. So the US ski team, they're using structure almost all the time, almost every race, because they have the right tools. Most people don't have the right tools, and a lot of times in those colder conditions, drier conditions, structure doesn't help out very much. In warmer conditions, higher humidity, it almost will always help, and that's where it makes a bigger difference. So warmer, higher humidity conditions that's where you really want to make it work. So.
Does using structure affect the life of the base of the ski?
Nope. So using structure doesn't affect the life of the base of the ski if it is the right type of structure tool. So there's 2 different types of structure tools. There's cutters and there's pressing tools. So if you're using a tool that will press a structure into the ski base, if you press it into the ski base, it will eventually come out. But if you use a structure tool that will cut the ski base, well, you cut the ski base, the only way it's coming out is with a stone grind. Generally, there's not that many cutting tools, and they're high liability. They work really good in like wetter conditions, but they can also pick up dirt, and a lot of times in higher humidity conditions, there's also dirt. So like cutting tools they're super hit or miss, and I usually don't recommend them. And if I'm recommending them, it's because I've tested it. I do not use them very frequently, but when they work, they work. So, yeah. Yeah, it looks like we're getting closer to the end here. I will be sticking around for a little bit after this. If people want more questions answered, you can come up and talk to me as I'm kind of packing away stuff. But thanks, everybody, for coming tonight. This is a huge turnout. I think this is probably the most we've ever had. This is kind of fun. So we should be doing another one of these probably in January sometime. Usually I will focus on a different type of a topic. It might be kick wax, might be more specific advanced stuff, could be talking about structure. If anybody has any ideas, you can shoot me a message, shoot me an email. I'd be happy to figure out a topic for that January clinic. So, awesome. Thanks, guys. Oh, you always have an idea. What's your idea? Oh, Chris could come. So, all right. So my brother just had an idea. He might come for the next one. So I'll have to figure out when he's here, and I know he likes beer. So.
Strap it down. Are you just trying to immobilize it? Or is
Yeah.
there a certain form? Just immobilize it?
Yeah, 1 second. I'm just end this. Yeah, it's just to make